ever watched one of those History Channel shows where they try to explain some strange phenomenon scientifically? Yeah, most of the time they pretty much attribute anything bizarre to aliens. But I remember watching one such documentary with my dad about the Bible story that we're going to look at today. Can you guess what it is? You'll have to stick around to see if you're right. Well, what's up, Bible nerds? We are in this series where we are re-examining some well-known Bible stories and seeing how they can lead us to Jesus and invite us to become more like him. Because what we know is that the whole Bible is intended to do just that. And as we make our way through the stories of the Bible, we discover truth about who God is and who we are on every page and in every passage. But what about all those weird stories? Like, there's some crazy stuff that happens in Scripture. Walls fall down after people march around them. Other people are miraculously healed or brought back from the dead. And the occasional axe head starts to float. Yep, bet you didn't know about that one. But what do stories like that, stories that the History Channel producers have tried to explain for years, have to do with our lives today? I think that's a really good question. And what we know is that God reveals himself to us in the pages of Scripture. 2 Timothy reminds us that all Scripture, even the weird parts, is breathed out by God and is useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training us so that we can be equipped to serve him. And the fact that the Bible is God-breathed means that there are things that we can learn about who he is and what he is like on every page and in every passage, including the story that we are going to look at today. Did you guess what it is? It's the story of Moses and the parting of the Red Sea. And I just want to give you a quick Sunday school overview so that you know what we're talking about. What you need to know is that the people of Israel were enslaved in Egypt for over 400 years. And they cried out to God. And he hears them and he sees them. And he sends Moses to be his chosen deliverer. The Pharaoh, the king at the time, was like, absolutely not. I am not letting these people leave my country. And he actually sets himself up against God. So 10 plagues hit the nation of Egypt. And all throughout these 10 plagues, Moses keeps requesting that Pharaoh frees the Israelites. But Pharaoh keeps saying no. Until the final plague. All 10 plagues run their course, and Pharaoh is finally willing to let them go. He frees them. He says, get out of here. Go worship your God. But then he regrets it. And he chases them down again with his whole army, cornering them at the Red Sea. And the people of Israel are freaking out. With that in mind, we are going to start reading this story in Exodus 14. In verse 10, it says, as Pharaoh approached, the people of Israel looked up and panicked when they saw the Egyptians overtaking them. They cried out to the Lord and said to Moses, why did you bring us out here to die in the wilderness? Weren't there enough graves for us in Egypt? What have you done to us? Why did you make us leave Egypt? Didn't we tell you that this would happen while we were still in Egypt? We said, leave us alone. Let us be slaves to the Egyptians. It's better to be a slave in Egypt than be a corpse in the wilderness. But Moses told the people, don't be afraid. Just stand still and watch the Lord rescue you today. The Egyptians you see today will never be seen again. The Lord will fight for you. Just stay calm. Again, this story is in Exodus 14 if you want to check it out. But what's happening here is an epic display of God's power. God is about to split a sea to save his people. And this is supernatural beyond any shadow of a doubt. Because when was the last time you just casually strolled straight through a body of water without getting wet? I'm not talking like a little creek where you hopped from rock to rock and happened to not slip and soak your shoes. These people walked across a sea on dry ground. So I read this story, and the questions that I'm asking are, what does this story tell me about God? And what does this story tell me about us, about people? Well, here's the big idea. Even when we forget what God has done for us, he is faithful to us. He is faithful even when we are forgetful. And what I want to point out is the sequence of events that we just saw in this chapter. First, the Israelites looked up and saw the Egyptians. Then they cried out to God, but then immediately they started complaining to Moses. So how many of you read this and are like, yes, I would be totally freaking out. An army is coming after me, and I've seen how brutal the Egyptians can be, and like, there's an ocean behind me. There's no way I can swim away fast enough. But how many of you are like, dude, how could they be that dumb? God literally just brought 10 plagues on these guys, plagues of epic proportions, like complete darkness and hail from heaven. Clearly, God can take care of this. And is anyone feeling some combination of both of those? Well, regardless of your initial reaction, what's really clear to me is that trusting God is hard for us as human beings. If it was hard for people who had just been supernaturally liberated from 400 years of slavery, it's pretty reasonable to expect that it might be hard for us now. Because from the very beginning of the biblical story, we've wrestled with the temptation to trust in what we see instead of trusting in God. But even though it's hard, God has never stopped inviting us to trust him. Why? Because when we choose to trust God more than what we see, everything about our lives becomes steadier. Hebrews 13:8 says, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. His consistency makes him trustworthy. And the more we get to know him and his character, the more we realize that we can trust him completely. And something that has been true about God from the very beginning is that he never gives up on us. He's willing to go to great lengths to rescue his people. And the Israelites' rescue from slavery actually mirrors our rescue from slavery to sin. To rescue the Israelites from slavery, God broke apart a body of water so his people could escape. And to rescue us from slavery to sin, Jesus allowed his own body to be broken so that we could be free. Titus 2:15 says, he gave his life to free us from every kind of sin, to cleanse us and make us his very own people, totally committed to doing good deeds. This is the God who invites us to trust him, one who gave up everything down to his own life so that we could be free. And when we choose to place our faith and trust in him and begin to learn how to truly live in the freedom he offers, it changes everything. So even though it's harder to trust God more than we trust in what we see, trusting God is always worth it because he never gives up on us. Isn't it so cool that the Bible really does lead us to Jesus and invite us to become more like him? So next time you read a story in the Bible, ask yourself these questions. What does this show me about God? What does it show me about people? How does this lead me to Jesus? And how is it inviting me to become more like Jesus? Also, to learn more about Exodus and how this whole story points us to Jesus, you can watch the video that we're going to put in the description of this video. It's from our friends at Spoken Gospel, and it's amazing. So are there any stories in the Bible that you would be excited to look into this week? What about any questions that you have about them? Go ahead and let me know in the comments below which stories you think we should make videos about in the future. But until next time, keep reading and stay nerdy.